Good morning, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to the Council meeting on Thursday 25th of June 2020. And I'll welcome councillors, community board members, staff and the media. Call for apologies, but I think everybody is here, so there is none. Extraordinary business, I know of none. There's done. Declarations of interest. And I'll just declare an interest on item 13 with the Appendix A, the refuge collection. It would, I'll take no debate, no discussion or debate on that item. Confirmation of the minutes. Page 4. Any alterations or additions? Page 4 of the council meeting, 21st of May 2020. Page 5. Page 6. Someone like to move that we take that taken as read? Councillor Cameron, Councillor McMillan. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Item number 5. Extraordinary Council meeting 11th of June 2020. Any alterations or additions? There's not much there to alter. Move. Councillor Wilson, Councillor McMillan. They're taken as read. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Item number 6. COVID-19 Response Committee meeting 18th of May 2020. Someone like any alterations or additions on page 9? Page 10. We'll move in a seconder. Councillor Rawlinson, Councillor Lovett. That they be taken as read. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Item number 7. COVID-19 Response Committee meeting held on the 28th of May 2020. Any alterations or additions on page 11? Page 12. Page 13. I'll get a move in a second, and then there's one item to deal with in the council also.
I'll move the recommendation to the council that approves the library collection policy 2020 attached as appendix.
I'll just receive the minutes first and
okay,
take them, then we'll go to we'll move
I'll
to that.
Move the minutes be received. And
taken as read. Seconder. Councillor McMillan.
Yep.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Now, Councillor Wilson.
I'll move the recommendation to council that council approves the library collection policy 2020 attached as appendix 1.
Yeah, seconder for that. Councillor Lovett. We have the librarian Jill in attendance. Are there any questions of Jill? She's here to answer any if there is. And we have the policy attached, page 14, 15. Councillor Mackay.
Mr Mayor, councillors, good afternoon. I will be voting against this item as I've had said my piece earlier in the production of the policy.
Would you like to enlighten us on what that was?
It was quite simple because there was no, I asked for consultation on what the people might like to have in our library. If you remember, fiction, non-fiction, e-books, etc, etc, etc. There was none. I'll be voting against.
Thank you. Anything further? If not, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Against, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. And noted?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Mackay. Thank you, Jill. Item number 8. The COVID-19 Response Committee on the 4th of June 2020. Any alterations or additions? 17 or 18, and there is a recommendation there as well, but we'll get a move in a seconder for the minutes first.
I'll move it.
Councillor McMillan, seconder. Councillor Rawlinson. That we receive those minutes. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Move to the item on page 18. Recommendation to council that council receives the report, that council removes the charge for stock water services and requires those properties paying for services to pay the minimum charge, that council supports option 3, which increases the minimum amount paid to $600 and uses the rate of 0.1665 per metre.
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
And, Councillor Floon, second. Open for debate. Councillor Mackay.
Mr Mayor, councillors, I was against this. I'm recorded as against this in the minutes, and I will be voting accordingly today.
Okay. This document is going out for consultation. Yeah. Yeah. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion. I am in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item number 9. COVID-19 Response Committee meeting 18th of June. So move and a second to receive these minutes. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Lovett. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Oh. Yep. I have got it. If you want to do it, or okay. But just clarification on the Ashton Beach Enhancement Project, and officers have given us the report and we've decided to do it. The management plan for the lizards, etc., will take some time, but what is urgent there is the fencing gets done. It's a health and safety matter. So what we're in here is the fencing will be done straight away, the other one will be done a wee bit later on. So, and also, Councillor Lovett, the allowance for car parking has been allowed for. So we'll call that Lovett's Lane.
It's a real used hard strip for car parking down there. There's cars all on it in the weekend, so I'm actually pleased that you're taking note of that. Thank you.
Lovett's Lane could be shortened even.
Yes, yes, and also noted in the weekend there's people up on top of that donga. They're using it as a walking track to get up the top and view the scenery. So I just hope when they do the fencing they take that in note, and we might better get some clubs on board and perhaps build a walkway up there at some stage.
The fencing is the plan we saw, apart from the Lovett's Lane.
Thank you. I'm happy.
So that's just clarification there. Yep. Councillor McMillan.
I just wanted to move the recommendation to council regarding the suspending the COVID-19 response. Are we up to that?
We got a move and second for that, didn't we? We haven't. Oh, we did. Yep. Yeah, the minutes are done.
Yep.
Yep. No, we're up to there. We are.
Okay, so I'll move that recommendation to suspend.
Second, Councillor Brown. It's the COVID. You're suspending the COVID meetings. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Item number 10, annual plan. So we have a policy team here who have been some of the ones working on this. Councillors, or Tony, your team, any further that you need to add? Emily?
Yeah, thanks through the chair. I'll take it as read, but Jane does have a further clarification on the fees and charges, so I'll pass it to her for that update.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. One of the fees that was in the schedule of fees was an annual fee for a building consent list, and we were proposing to put that up from $154 to $400 based on a comparison we did with other councils. The cheapest was $100 and Timaru was the most expensive at $720. We sell the report to 37 companies. After councillors decided at the workshop to run with the new proposed fee, the chief executive was at a meeting with the Economic Advisory Group, and considerable concern was expressed at such a steep price increase, bearing in mind this was done pre-COVID. So councillors may wish to reconsider what we were proposing to increase it from 154 to 400, since that's causing angst. Perhaps 200 might be a more appropriate figure, or whatever you might think.
It's on page 152, councillors, of the annual plan, the draft annual plan consultation document. So you're proposing 200.
Yes, I am, Mr Mayor, but I'm in your hands. I don't have a
See
strong
what the
view.
councillors say,
Yep.
yeah. Councillor Rawlinson?
Thank you, and that was the first thing I'd highlighted to bring up for discussion, was that fee. So if,
Didn't have a question. Your second, okay. Open for debate, councillor Wilson.
No, I've got a question on the general thing rather than the
Okay, we'll
specific
we'll
motion.
just do that wee bit first. Do we need to do that separately, or can we wrap that up in the, do it separately? Yeah, so we've got to move in a second for that it goes to $200. Jane, in the policy there, or the plan, you can get it per month at $40. You're proposing to leave it the same at 40, where it was 15?
No, we would divide the 200 by 12.
You'll prorata it?
Yes.
Okay. So that's moving in a second. Happy with that? Good. I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. Now, Stuart, question on the rest of the plan.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. My question is, this new sheet we've just got now, it's put the current valuation of Ashburton residential at $350, whereas the other one we've had is $292. Why? Usually valuations increase every 3 years with, when the district's revalued. How's suddenly gone up when it hasn't been revalued?
Chief Executive?
You want it? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the reason we've used 350 is because the 292 was the estimated average for Ashburton residential under the old valuation. The revaluation was done nearly 2 years ago, and we felt that continuing to reflect the rates for a property at 292 was potentially misleading, because it's not actually the average value of a property in Ashburton. And at some point, in order to make a comparison, you've got to make a call to a different value and then update that value for the previous year to make that comparison valid. So we thought this was the right time to do it. We're well into the next block of the revalued properties. It's better to reflect on the movement of a new average property in Ashburton rather than 292, because if you never change that in order to have a comparison with 292, we'd be reporting on 292 for the next 50 years, because you could never change it. So that's the rationale. We felt more transparent for the ratepayers than continuing to report on 292.
Yeah, supplementary. I thought we did it as a matter of fact every time the district was revalued, that we looked at the valuations and looked at the real estate, and that was it. I thought we did it you have to do it every 3 years, otherwise, as you say, it gets completely out of date.
You do it, but this is for the purpose of demonstrating movement to the ratepayers. So all that work is done, but in order for us to show what an average residential property in Ashburton's rates might do, we've used the new value and then to show that movement. The key is the change of rates. So if you've got a property at around that value, you can see the change that this annual plan means for your rates.
And everybody's house has a different value, so they can have a different rate, more or less. Yeah. So if your house was worth $350,000, this is what you would pay.
That's
if
right.
it's $370,000, you'll pay a bit more. If it's $250,000, you'll pay a bit less.
Yeah.
So that's an example.
That's it.
Yeah. Councillor McMillan.
Are you happy for us to ask questions?
Yep.
Throughout?
Yeah, we'll do questions now. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got two questions. First one is on page 148 of the annual plan, and there's a $0 amount for the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall. Just wondering why.
So through the chair, the way that we rate and per our revenue and financing policy, we have to look at all of the income coming into an area first, and then the shortfall is generally what you would then apply your rates to cover. In this case, the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall Board told us that they were expecting quite a lot of rental revenue in the 2021 year. It covered all of their operating expenditure, so there was no need to rate.
And if I can just follow that explanation as to why it's 0.00000, with the work that's been ongoing within the last couple of weeks, we realise that the situation for the Mount Hutt hall has changed, and therefore we do have a proposal for you to consider whereby we would levy a rate in the dollar such that the hall committee would receive $20,000 from rates. And it's essentially to assist with the shortfall in rental from the disbanding of EMC's presence in the hall.
Thank you. And that was probably, my comment is that in the past we've had a targeted rate of $20,000. So I just wondered about that. And it probably leads into my next question, which is on page 54, and whether we do need to mention anything about the Methven eyesight. I thought there was some information in there.
Sorry, what was the page?
54?
Page 54.
Under tourism.
Yeah, on the forestry.
Tourism, experience Canterbury.
Yep. Yes, there will be an edit needed for the wording of that. We are still relying on EMC to do our tourism promotion. It's just they have entered into a contract to deliver it in a different fashion, but the reference to continuing to manage an eyesight in Methven needs to change. Thank you.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Just going back to the capital valuation, despite the slight raise to 350 per resident or residential property, with the favourable changes in the water supply rates, the rate will still be $10 cheaper than it was last year overall.
Correct.
So by putting that capital value up is not in fact putting the rates up for those people.
No, it's just an example of a property value to give people an indication of what they to pay.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Page 115, 115, Reserve Board balances. They don't equate to what, I don't think the Hines Reserve Board is $55,000 in debt and budgeting on going to 69,000 in debt. And I was at Ealing the other night and they're certainly not 29,000 in credit. I just wonder where those figures actually come from. And the change from 2020 to 2021, is that on a budget? Or how do you equate to that they're going to withdraw those funds in the year coming?
Rachel.
Through the chair, apologies, we're struggling to find the page at the moment, but reserves in general, should be budget versus budget. So what it looks at, it will look at the last reserve balance that we have, which is actually for 30th of June 2019. Then we have to estimate what we will be having coming through the current year accounts to get an opening balance for 1st of July 2020, and then we look at what's going through in the 2021 year to get an overall reserve balance. So that's where these have come from. So yes, it can include estimates because we have to make our best guess of what our balance sheet is going to look like at the end of 30th of June 2021. So it's our best estimate based on the information that we have to hand coming through the budgets and what has been happening in the current year.
The supplementary is, I don't agree with them at all. I think they're completely out.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we hear that comment and we'll go away and check those opening and closing balances specifically for those reserves.
Well, the opening balance should be pretty accurate. It's the closing balance you won't know until this time next year.
Yes.
Obviously, but,
Through the
I'm taking that Councillor Wilson is querying the opening balance as well.
yeah. Rachel?
if you just don't mind me adding an extra comment, the opening balance is at the 1st of July 2020. We are not at that point so far. So the opening balance itself will have to be, it'll be a reasonably good one, but it will be an estimate until our financials are finalised and audited later on this year. We will not be able to tell you with 100% confidence what those reserve balance will be exactly. We will have a very good idea, but I cannot tell you 100% that this will be exactly to the dollar what the reserve will be.
But this document would have been put together in February or March, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Falloon?
Yeah, I'd just like to support what Councillor Wilson has just said. I saw some figures for the Mayfield Reserve Board the other day, and quite frankly, that just didn't make sense.
Thank you. Another question on page 9, and it's around waste reduction and recovery. And look at a 16.9% increase there. And Mr. McCann, do you have the answer to why the big increase in waste reduction?
Yes, through the chair, that reflects the actual expenditure in this current year, tracking the tonnages and volumes that we are experiencing, that we're having to take to landfill. So that adjustment has been made with that in mind, and changed to what we expect in the coming year. So we do expect increases in tonnages of a similar increase as what we've experienced in this current year.
Councillor Mackay, thanks.
Mr Mayor, my question is, may I congratulate you and the Chief Executive on the words on page 1 of the annual plan. And in light of what you talk about there about encouraging the district and our economy in unprecedented times and committed to responding quickly, I ask, why are we employing an agricultural portfolio advisor when our farmers in the agricultural field are some of the most forward-thinking, innovative farmers, have attached themselves to organisations such as Foundation for Arable Research, pay money to dairy, I pay it to the Dairy Services Incorporated for research and quick messages back to the farmers. Also, I note what ECAN does through its land sustainability section and advice on nutrients, etc., etc. As a member of an irrigation company, a part member of an irrigation company, I read the newsletters that distribute information. So why is this council entering into that field that is also well covered by the people and advisors, top-line advisors, that advise all around the country? In fact, one of them so good, he's now recently got on the board of Fonterra. Why are we entering that to muddy the waters with still another advisory person? I can't find it in the annual plan. That's why I'm asking the question in the meeting, sir.
Thank you. Hamish.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I'll make some introductory comments, and our Economic Development Manager is here perhaps to respond in slightly greater detail. The position came about via work that our Economic Development Manager is doing in conjunction with others in relation to the food and fibre strand of work through the Mayoral Forum and others for Canterbury. So thinking about the future of agriculture, thinking about how does the current pressures around sustainability and the environment impact in a kind of strategic way on practices. Thinking about that work and flowed through to conversations with central government, which flowed through to the opportunity to apply for some funding from the Provincial Growth Fund, which we took advantage of, and this position is funded 100% by the Provincial Growth Fund, so not a cost to Ashburton's ratepayers, and is intended to coordinate, think about and provide perspective specifically for this council as opposed to all the other myriad pieces. We hope it's not duplication. We hope in fact it might pull some strands of thinking together such that this council might receive, specific updates. We don't receive any of those updates from the farming sector, nor do we receive any updates from the environmental sector. As a council, we sit in a position of needing to think about land use change, thinking about fresh water, thinking about a range of the issues that might coincide in this portfolio area, and yet we have no specific resource nor advice to this council. So that's what it's all about. No cost, doing some thinking and coordinating of other work. But if that doesn't cover it accurately, or there's some more detail councillors would require, then the Economic Development Manager can answer that for you.
Councillor McCall.
Supplementary from that, Mr. Mayor, if I may. So when this person visits organisations, visits farmers on the ground, travels around, on the side of their car will be Provincial Growth Fund, and that they won't be wearing an ADC jersey. Is that correct?
No, that is
I'm
wrong.
thinking about the impressions given to the community, sir.
So no, they'll be employed by the Ashburton District Council on a fixed-term contract funded by the central government. So no, they won't be wearing a T-shirt with PGF on it.
Who will be their report?
They'll
How will that feed back?
report through to Bevan,
And so through economic development, it'll feed back to council.
to Community Services
To
Committee
community
and
services.
council.
Yeah.
Which I chair, that's why I'm raising it, the community service.
Yeah.
I have studied it on the website, and I saw on the third box down. So I'll end up reporting to a committee that I chair.
Yes.
And I was actually quite perturbed when I saw it. That's why I'm raising it now, and I'm trying to work out how I can stop it from happening. But I don't think I can, because it has not been a decision of council, as this council.
No, through Mr Mayor, we applied in good faith to the Provincial Growth Fund, who have granted the money, so I haven't turned my mind to stopping it. We're in the process of recruiting for it.
Yeah, Councillor Letham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors may recall when the position of Economic Development Manager came up, I voiced some concerns that it may be just a duplication, and we may be just putting another layer of bureaucracy into our system, and that it may just result in heaps of meetings with very little coming out. And I lean towards what Councillor Mackay has said, because, as he rightly said, there's tons of experts in this county. Mid-Canterbury would have the finest and most successful farming leaders of anywhere in New Zealand. And why, even though it's not funded by the Ashburton District Council, why do we need to have one? It just beggars belief, to be quite honest.
I think this position will help the farmers. The farmers in the last 2-3 years have been feeling very unloved. They're not getting their message across. I see this role, and we could mould this role into getting that message out to the general public on what farmers do. There'll be no directives come out of this as to what farmers should do. They come from other departments, other agencies. I see this as bringing that together. I don't see it, I see it as a good thing. And we get to mould it, I would assume. If it's not pointing in the right direction, we will steer it in the right direction. So, yeah, Councillor Lovett.
I kind of see this going the other way, that the farmers will be told what to do, because a lot of these things start off small, they gain traction and end up going to government level, and all these rules, regulations and more consent processes are hitting us in the face, and every time we do a consent there's another $15,000 for the farm. And I think we're on dangerous ground here, and my approach would be, why aren't we asking Dairy NZ, the Foundation of Arable Research, Ag Research, to give us newsletters so we know what is going on out there in the industry. And a lot of their plant breeding and stuff is under breeders' rights, and they're not going to be sharing information. So we're better to be working with the industry than trying to reinvent the wheel.
I think we might be thinking it's a different job than what it is. I think this is gathering our information from the rural sector, bringing it in and sending the message out. I see it as a positive, not a negative. Councillor Wilson? Oh, sorry. Councillor Wilson?
I don't have a view on whether it's good or bad, but I just ask, given your comments, do you see it as perhaps helping to bridge the gap between the urban-rural, you know, the people say there's a divide between urban and rural, whether there is or there isn't, I don't know, but do you see it as perhaps helping to overlay that?
I would hope it would, and that gap that's there, this could help bridge it, I believe, could certainly assist in doing that. But we'll get to steer it. They're inside our tent, so to speak. Councillor Mackay.
Well, Mr Mayor, thank you for all the words of encouragement. Can I suggest, sir, that you read the web page that goes with it, the application, and that if what you say is where we're heading, I believe it needs some alteration fast, so we get the right person. There's a saying, you never look a gift horse in the mouth, but just the way I read it, it read all wrong. If we can get it changed somehow and get the right person, maybe it is worth a go. But as I read it, I thought it was an insult to farmers. But if you think we can give it a go, we'll give it a go.
We may need to mould it then. Thanks. Questions on the annual plan? I just have one on page 112, and it's on drinking water reserves. And wondering why we have a drinking water reserve today when the drinking water, all the drinking waters are together.
Through Mr Mayor, we can look to combine all those reserve accounts for the ones that are pulled. Not all in that list are part of that, but I'll bring a resolution to council in the near future to actually combine them all up. But at the moment, that's just an historic way of reporting them. We still have balances in each water supply account, but there's no need to keep them separate if all their costs now are being pulled.
Because we initially started off with the operating, but then we looked at capital, and was that last year or the year before?
Year before, I think.
Year before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just catch up. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I've just got a general comment about we aimed for and we went down to 2.5% increase. If you go to page 10, you'll see exactly who's paying it. Urban residential are going to be minus 0.67, and the bottom of the page, the poor old rural plus 3.23. It seems to be a never-ending thing of this district that we rely on rural section to pay the majority of the general rate. And because of government policy, we can't increase the UAGC past 30%, even though as a council we had things that we deemed should have been UAGC, but because of the 30% we couldn't put them there, so it ended up increasing the general rate. And unfortunately, rural ratepayers end up paying the vast majority of the general rate. So farmers out there, when you see you get an increase and urban people get a decrease, it's because of government policy restricting us to UAGC 30%, and when you get the general rate, the majority is paid by rural because of the valuations.
And the average rate increase is 2.5 average. Councillor Brown.
Just a small reminder for Councillor Wilson. 3 years ago we were sitting on this table here and it was urban who was getting the big push. Now it's the other way. It's part of life.
Any further questions? If not, I will move to the recommendation, which is on page 22. Council adopts the Ashburton District Council Annual Plan 2021. Number 2, that Council adopts the fees and charges schedule for the 2021 financial year as scheduled in the Ashburton District Council Annual Plan 2021. Number 3, that Council delegates to the Chief Executive the authority and the responsibility to make minor editorial changes and correction of minor errors to the Annual Plan 2021 document. So, Tony.
Sorry, just before you go too much further, I would recommend including the words as amended into your recommendations for the annual plan and the fees and charges schedule to pick up the direction that you've given today.
So on number 1 is 2021 as amended.
As amended, and also for number 2 as amended.
Thank you. Philippa's got them. Give a mover for that, please. Councillor Cameron, you moved. Councillor Brown, seconded. Open for debate. Further debate? I'm in favour. All in favour? Please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you for that. You're now financial for another year. Go out and spend it.
Wisely.
Wisely, of course, wisely. Thank you. Following on from that, item number 11, the setting of the rates, 2021. Any questions of Rachel? Oh, Hamish?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We are conscious of the conversation leading into the lockdown around penalties that this council had, and were told at the time that there was no legal ability to amend the penalty rate for instalment 4, and council accepted that, amended the remissions policy around hardship, but the penalty is what it is because it was struck at this time last year. At that time, we talked about the potential for there to be a variable penalty for the future year, and in preparing this resolution, you'll notice on the page that I can't find, that
31.
Thank you. That we have proposed a 10% penalty on each of the instalments. If council had in mind to have a different penalty on different instalments, then now is the chance to do it. If you adopt it as it's in front of you, it will be 10% on each penalty. If you want to vary each instalment amount or change that 10% penalty, then now is the time to do it.
Councillor Brown?
Oh, sorry, no.
It raises a good question because we, over the COVID period, people were telling us they couldn't afford to pay their rate, so we said we would waive the one fee, the penalty at once, as our policy would allow us to do. But that wasn't widely taken up, I don't think. Do we know how much?
Have we got any stats on that, Rachel?
Apologies, I don't have statistics, but if I'm remembering rightly from the rates officer, there was a slight uptick in the amount of people getting penalty remissions, but not a lot. It was more the timing. People were more aware of it and were getting in before they got the penalty notice. So it was much better, I guess, from an administrative point of view, and they knew that they were already sorted before the penalties impacted them.
Okay. Councillor Cameron?
So we're talking about the rates instalments due 20th August 20, 20th November 20.
This financial
Bottom of
year.
page 31, the top of page 32.
I would like to see that the penalty be waived for the first 2 instalments. I think the economic impact of the COVID and the lockdown is still yet to be seen, perhaps. And I'd like to see some forgiveness in late fees for the first 2 instalments for the next 12 months. Do I move that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Well, we will have a discussion that you come back to it. If it sounds very, very generous, if you have a 0 penalty fee, no one will pay their rates. Correct.
But given that the uptake has been quite small, wouldn't we
the
waive?
uptake will be large, I would imagine, because there's no penalty for not paying your rates, so people will not pay them.
Okay. Do you not? Okay.
You would need to have a
So
penalty.
we think very little of our fellow ratepayers if we think they're not going to pay their rates. Do you think?
There's no penalty. Why would you?
Keep that wonderful council going.
Hamish?
No, that was a concern that I was going to express. That without the incentive,
it didn't cross my mind that they wouldn't pay their rates. To be fair,
well, you've created an incentive.
They're not all on automatic payment.
Created an incentive for them not to.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be 10%, but we would, as officers, recommend there be some incentive.
Because I'd like to make, so my intention was to make it possible so that people wouldn't be punished for not having the wherewithal to pay their rates in a timely manner.
Remembering that we still have our remission policy in place that for hardship that is in place for those examples. Yeah.
As a suggestion, you may look at 5% for the first 2 months, perhaps, but we'll have, there's some lights on. And next up is John, Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe 10% is probably a little bit harsh, and I don't know whether we have the technology to do it or not, but I prefer to see it replaced with a 5% penalty straight off, and then an interest payment of 5 or 7.5% per year for as long as the rates remain outstanding.
Fraught with problems, Rachel?
I would need to double check with Tech One, our supplier, but at the moment we need to put a percentage penalty on each instalment. So for example, 5%, and then there is an end of year penalty, but again, that's a percentage. That's not, it doesn't change. It is what it is. And that's my understanding of how the system is set up. I don't believe it would be able to do variable interest rates.
No, we don't get to charge interest on rates, Councillor Flynn. We get to charge a penalty on outstanding rates. So a subtle difference, but the rating powers that we have talks about payment by a due date and then subject to a penalty. We don't have a concept of interest on outstanding monies for rates, not legally.
Councillor Lovett?
I would support the 5% just for this year over COVID, and because we know businesses and people are going to be struggling probably around that October, November, December time until the country gets back on its feet. And I think if you just gave people just that 1 year with that 5%, I think that's been generous, because we have got another program there to help the others that can't, that are really struggling.
Great, Rachel?
Through the Chair, I'd just like to point out that you still have the penalty remission policy. So while the 5% or the 10% will be added on, if they meet the criteria, which I believe you're also open to change, their penalty will be remitted, no matter whether it's 10% or 5%. So if somebody is under hardship and the policy will let us do it, we will go ahead and remit that penalty. And if, for example, you want to say if someone has had a penalty remitted in the prior 2 years, normally we don't do it again. But if you want to say for the first 6 months of the 2021 year, you want to waive that piece of the policy, I believe we can go ahead and do so. I need to double check.
Paul?
Excuse me, I suggest you take two things separately. One of is this penalty. The issue of writing off remissions, we do have a remission policy you might want to look at again before the first penalty is applied for the year and see whether you're happy with that, because there is a limitation on how many times you could write these penalties off, and you may want to amend that. But I think at the moment you just need to concentrate on what the penalty actually is going to be, and we can come back later if you like to have another look at the remission policy.
At the policy itself, which is separate to this process.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just dealing with the percentage penalty. Councillor Floon?
Just really a point of clarification. Is it possible to have different penalties for different instalments, so that you could have 5% penalty for the first 2 instalments and 10% penalty for the second 2 instalments? The other question is, is it possible to add penalties onto penalties? So if you've not paid instalment 1, instalment 2 comes along, does the penalty again go on to instalment 1, or is the penalty per instalment?
It's through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, you can have a variable penalty per instalment, and no, the penalty doesn't apply to the previous instalment each time it's outstanding, until the following year when all rates outstanding attract a second penalty.
Then, well, someone will have to go off. Elaine, if you go off to Roger. Yeah.
And that's why I would like to see an interest penalty cut back, and an interest if we could get that changed somehow.
Not in time for this resolution this afternoon, Councillor Falloon. No.
Lane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Rachel, the system we've got now, how many people who are in trouble coming before have to pay a penalty?
If, again, I am attempting to remember what I have been told by the rates officer. I don't have the figures in front of me. But I can, this time round, she said that there was less penalty notices sent out because I think there was a lot more comms around the penalty remittance policy. So people were getting in advance, and if it's already set up in our system, we just don't send the penalty letter at all. The penalty's just not applied. We have a flag effectively against their name. But as far as numbers, I'm sorry, I can't give you, I can't tell you there's 100 or 200 people, but I do know that there was less this quarter with penalties applied.
Right, just another question. So basically, what we got in place seemed to work because we were quite scared 2 months, 3 months ago with the COVID that it would not work. Now we spent a lot of time trying to get things changed, and then we decided to do this. So really, 3 months later, the system still works the way it is.
Yes.
And works quite well without getting a lot of people who get penalties.
And we have it now all online. It's on our website, so you can fill in the form on the website, and that comes straight through to our rates officer. So rather than having to wait for the penalty notice, then calling and then getting it removed, it's set up in advance. So provided that they meet the conditions in the remission policy, we can go ahead and put the flag against their name, and they just don't get included in the penalty run.
Thank you for that. So really, why try to fix something that works?
Councillor Latham?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question has been answered by the staff, so I think 10% is simple, it's straightforward, and it doesn't appear to be causing any problems. And I like 10% because real estate agents can work that out without using a calculator.
If you have 10, it's fine.
I'll just repeat what Chief Executive mentioned. There is actually 5 penalties. There's a penalty on each instalment, and then there's an annual penalty, which picks up, I think, Councillor Falloon's concern that if by the 21st of August, there's a 10% penalty on all outstanding rates applied again. So you actually get a double whammy if you haven't cleared them by the end of the year. So you do get hit again with another penalty. And at the moment, that one's 10% as well. So if you are actually struggling to pay the rates and you're getting hit 10% on every instalment, then 10% on the outstanding, that's actually quite a significant cost being applied. And so if you're going to change any of the penalty rates, you do have the chance as well to change that annual one as well. So we do pick up the people that haven't paid at the end of the year.
Councillor McKay?
Do we have a motion, Mr Mayor?
No, we don't, but I think you're about to get one.
I'll move. I'll move that 5% be added to the first 2 instalments, 10% to the second 2, and 10 to the final 12 months one.
A seconder for that?
I still had a question.
No, we'll take a seconder first, then we'll debate. Councillor Falloon? Okay, Philip, you've got that. Thank you. Diane?
I support what Angus said, but I was just going to ask, is it more practical to leave it at 10% but just keep publicising the interest remission policy? Because obviously in the last round of rates, post the first lot since COVID, that seems to have worked for people. So is it necessary to make change to the overall rate if that system worked?
You can only remit the rates once in our policy. Once in 2 years? 2 years.
But we did forgive that, didn't we?
We amended that policy.
That was through COVID. Is it still sitting there like that? Yes, or not? It is.
Yes, and that's
So
why
we
I'm
need to
asking.
go back and review the policy then, as Councillor, Mr Brake suggested.
That's why I was asking, is that a more practical way to do it and let those who need that assistance apply for it rather than make change here?
We can do change here as the mover and seconder have indicated, and we can do the policy later. And tidy everything up, if that's what you wish. Councillor Brown? Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm quite happy the way it stands. I will not support this motion.
Okay, any further debate? So we know what the motion is. Do you want 5%, the first two instalments, then 10% for the last two, and the final end of year one's 10%, as it is now. I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
No.
Okay. Do you want it recorded?
Please.
Passed, two against. Councillor Latham, Councillor Brown. Thank you. So back to the setting of the rate. Councillor Mackay. Oh, who's going to go off? Stuart.
I move that we review our rates remission policy.
Do we need a motion for that, or is it? Mr. Brake will bring it to the community services, is it, or which? Audit and risk. Audit and risk. It'll come to audit and risk committee, guaranteed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If I've got a query regarding the map, Ashburton Group Water Serviceable.
Page.
Well, it's under your maps, part of the annual plan, because if we go to page 26, it says defined water supply areas listed below. It's got the names, but if you go to the maps, there's a couple of anomalies there. It's got orange old boundary area, and there's an area he's got below Mayfield out in the middle of a farm. I don't.
Hang on, Mr. Councillor Wilson. I'm on 26, and my map is Methven urban, residential, and commercial.
No, page 26 is the written stuff. If you go into maps,
Oh, what page? Which map are we looking
you
at?
have to go into maps 004. It's a completely different section.
It is a different section, so it's number 4.
Excuse me.
Of which document?
Excuse me.
Oh, it's in the agenda 20.
Hang on. Hang on.
Tony, clarification.
Excuse me.
Amendment
Thank you.
26.
Just for a point of clarification through the chair. So the maps that you're referring to, they are for the draft revenue and finance policy, which is preparing to go out for consultation, and they wouldn't take effect until the 1st of July 2021.
Thank you.
No problem.
Setting of rates, we have a recommendation there. I won't read each one, but if someone wants to, they're more than welcome. Rachel?
I've just calculated if you would also like to know what the Mount Hutt rate would be, because at the moment it's showing 0 in the document that you have. It would be 0.000047 cents in the dollar, or cents for every dollar of capital value.
Okay.
That's page 31.
Ends on your capital value.
31 of the agenda.
And that was adding the $20,000 into the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall.
Page 31.
Inclusive.
Page 31 of the meeting agenda. How many zeros, Rachel?
Point and then 4 zeros, 47.
Thank you.
I did have one question, and I'm going on memory because I can't find it in my book, and it was on the rubbish rate, or the recycling rate, where it's $236 per household or thereabouts, but Rangitata and Lake Clearwater are way less than that. Why would that be? What page was it on?
Yes, I saw that too, Mr. Mayor.
That's right. I'm sure
One was 32 and one was 62, I think.
I'm just looking for the page. I had it marked in.
Here it is, page 29, Mr. Mayor. Top of page 29 of the meeting agenda.
Oh, is that where it is? Meeting it, yes. There we go. That's exactly where I was looking, yeah. Lake Clearwood and Rangitata, they're two different rates compared to the rest. Oh, yeah. Neil?
Through the chair, I believe they have a private collection arrangement, so it's a different level of service.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So, move in a second to set the rates.
I'll move.
Councillor McMillan. I'll second. Councillor Brown. Open for debate. No debate. I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. And just like to thank the staff for their huge, tremendous amount of work that's been done to get to this level. It's happens every year, but there's a huge amount of work to do it. So, but your work doesn't stop there. You've just finishing one year and starting a new year, but finishing the other, and you'll have the annual report coming up. So, keep up the good work. Next page item is 34. Draft Development and Financial Contributions Policy. We have the document there. Just a recalculation of popping that Mount Hutt rate in and what it's done to the percentage increase. Hamish?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we can just let councillors know that with the increase of the funding for the Mount Hutt Hall, the overall rate increase for this year is 2.56%. So that's the small alteration by including the funding for the Mount Hutt Hall. Thank you.
That's average, and some people are above and some people are below, so it's an average. We all know that. So we've got the Draft Development and Financial Contributions Policy there. We have Richard and Tony with us here. We've workshopped this several times on different subjects to get where we are today. So if anything to add, Richard, or go to questions?
There is one thing I'd like to draw your attention to, and it relates to a conversation that we had at the last workshop when a consensus was emerging around the preferred option, which is the option that's contained in the documents in front of you today. And there was a question about whether that level of increase reflected the historic trends with development contributions. And if you look at the table on page, in my hard copy it's page 36, between clauses 9 and 10 of the report, what you'll see is that when you look at the different communities, some of them have generally risen over time. Some actually started quite high in 2006 and have actually come down over time. So in terms of there being an historic trend for development contributions, the reality is that there really isn't one. It's varied from place to place. So that wasn't the information that I gave you when I was answering your question. And when I went back and looked at it in detail, I was pretty horrified that I had given you poor information. So I'm pleased to put that right today. If in the light of that you wanted to revise the level of development contribution that was your preferred option, I suggest that you've got two alternatives. One is to do it now and go out and consult, and the other is to go out with what's in front of you now, hear what the community says, and then make an adjustment.
I'd prefer we go out with what we've got and hear what the community says and make an adjustment if we need to, yeah. But thank you for raising that.
That completes my mea culpa.
Lane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, we workshopped this for quite a while and it was not an easy piece to do. If there's no questions, I'm more than happy to put a recommendation as it is, let people decide and we go from there.
And you will have noticed early on I declared an interest in the appendix. I think this is where we're at for the rubbish collection extension. This is not. Right. Why is it attached to the revenue and financing? Oh, right. Some words dyslexic. Yeah. That's right. Senior moment. Moved to Councillor Graham, seconded Councillor Floon.
Yeah, I'd just like to second it, reminding everyone that this is only a draft agreement at this stage, and it will not be finalised until it goes out for consultation. And I'd recommend anyone who wants to make a comment does so.
Great. Any further discussion, debate? I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Moving over to draft revenue and financing policy. This is the one, the rubbish collections in. What page is it on?
Page 82.
It's still way up there.
82.
82. So and that consultation was open for, what's open for 1 month, and the 26th of July it closes.
Yes, it is. It opens for tomorrow and closes the 26th of July.
Yeah, and the one we're just about to do, the draft revenue and financing policy, it's same period of time.
Same period of time.
Running
too.
in conjunction with each other.
Yes, they are.
Great. So we've got Rachel here, two Rachels here actually, and Tony. So any questions on the draft revenue and financing policy?
I have a question.
Okay.
Through the chair, so just with the maps and the proposed extension areas, you've got, I don't know what page it is, page 24, Methven Sam Holmes Drive. Do you take into account the four sections on the Mount Harding Road that will require rubbish collection? So not all of those sections have a, it's in this book one.
We talk about page 98 of
Thank you.
Of the agenda?
Of the agenda.
Sam Holmes Drive,
So
Methven.
Sam Holmes Drive doesn't have so there's 4 sections that have entranceways onto Mount Harding Road opposed to Sam, and the rest have entranceways on Sam Holmes Drive. So I was just wondering, it's not clear in this document that those, I would assume that the Mount Harding Road houses would have the rubbish collection as well, since the rest of them do, but it's just not clear in that document.
Through the chair, so we will be writing to every person who potentially will be receiving the service. From looking at this, I think that those properties will be picked up, but I'll clarify that with Craig.
Thank you.
And just what you're talking about, Councillor McMillan, is what I am withdrawing from. The rubbish collection area, as I have a property in the extended area, so I'll make my views known through a submission. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As a councillor, I'm very surprised that these are suddenly sprung on us. We haven't had any input whatsoever. It's good to come with these maps to say, what do you think? I mean, there's a huge block, what you call the Willoughby block, but there are other areas that I feel, if we're going to extend that far out there are other areas perhaps above Tynwald we could extend or something like that. I know it's open for submission, but it would have been nice to know what's going on before we actually saw it in paper. And while we're on maps, that map number 4 regarding water services, is that in this part? It's got old boundary areas. There's an area below Mayfield I've never heard of being serviced by the council, and also northwest Tynwald. Are you cutting off an area there that's just been subdivided that I presume was going to be in council water serviceable? It's a very oblique map to try and work out where the roads are, but it would have been nice to run past us again, so as councillors we have an input, because we have to defend it when it goes out for consultation.
We have to make a decision on it when it goes out.
Mr Mayor, people will say, why have you done that? And you say, well, I don't really know. The staff did it and didn't ask us.
First, Mr. McKen.
If I can respond to the solid waste graphs that have been, or plans that have been produced, have been put together as a result of feedback we've received from residents over the last couple of years. So we've been approached by many residents in those areas, and we've accumulated all those requests, considered the areas and what impact it would have on the collection, and that's what's initiated these plans to start with for the consultation.
Would you want to withdraw those and have a workshop on them first?
No. I hope we can add to them, because when it goes out for consultation, there'll be lots of people who say, well, you're going to extend away down the Willoughby block. What about us out northeast or south or whatever? I mean, there's a gap between Lake Hood and Ashburton, which is a small gap. So it could be that the people there want to connect up or something like that. But I'm just saying it was a bit of a surprise to me to see that. I knew people wanted to extend, but it would have been nice to see the maps before it went out to public.
I think that point's been taken and passed on to the Chief Executive. Yep. Any further questions? Councillor Brown.
No question. I'm quite happy to move the recommendation as it stands on page 83. Because it's draft policy is again.
It's going out for consultation.
Seconded, Councillor Lovett. I will second that, and I'd actually like to thank all the staff for their work in these documents. They're excellent. Thank you. Well done.
I'm just wondering how I can do this by abstaining. I'm abstaining from voting because of the conflict. If I get to put the motion or not, or get Councillor McMillan to put it. Philippa.
I don't think there's conflict if you put in the motion and not voting.
Okay. As long as you don't vote. As long as I don't vote. Okay. So I can. We like to do it legally. We like to do legally too, but yeah. Always prudent to ask at times. So I'll put the motion. I'm abstaining. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item, Mayor's report. Okay. Okay. Is item number 14, Methven Community Board, and we have the Chairman, Councillor Dan McLaughlin. Chairman Dan McLaughlin here, but he had the opportunity to update us, but there is no update from Dan. And we have a meeting on Monday the 29th of June, so they're resuming, so back to full governance, I suppose you'd say, Dan, which is good. So thanks for that. Cool. 15, Mayor's report.
Page 1.
Yeah, 100, sorry, 100. Yeah, so I'll just go through it. We've got a remit process there, and we have remits, you were emailed them out. If you've got preference, on which way you would like me to vote at the AGM. There's 11 of them, and I'll get summarise them with number 1 is public transport. If you have no view, I can vote as I see fit. Housing affordability, number 2. Returning GST on rates for councils to spend on infrastructure. They may be a hard push, some of these.
I like the idea.
For that, well, vote for it, may not get it, but you don't get if you don't ask. Natural hazards and climate change adaptation.
We'll leave that up to your balanced view, Mr. Mayor. That's a new bringing.
Thank you. The annual regional balance of transfers. Local government electoral cycle, and that was to go to 4, asking to go to 4 years instead of 3. Yes, it's a yes for that.
Well, I'm not. I'm pleased you only 3 years last term, so. Yes.
It's a, was a yes or no? No, okay. Water bottling? It was to cancel all water bottling. There would be no water bottling. Cancel? No, no. Quorum when attending local authority meetings, and that was around using our tablets, because that was a COVID thing, so. Yep.
Just, if I may.
Yep.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, you might like to suggest that if there is no water bottling in New Zealand, how can New Zealanders drink their own water when they buy it in the shop?
Yeah, I think if you read the actual, the remit, it's probably detailed. Oh, you did, okay, good. Yep. Because we have to import it, I see what you mean. No. Yep. Got that quorum of when attending local authority meetings, and that's using the Zoom. It worked well, I think, but we can't do it under local government rules or government rules, I suppose. So, agree? We should push for that. Yep, so we could be anywhere in the world if we're ever allowed to travel again. Philippa.
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. No, if I could just, as a quick glance at it, I think what they're looking to do is give councils the option through their standing orders to retain the ability to have members who are not physically present to be part of the quorum. That's one of the key changes. So you don't have to do it, but you could consider that as a permanent fixture or a change to standing orders if that is allowed.
Councillor Letham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's all very well for us rattling through here and giving you some broad instructions as to what to do, but I've been in the same position and I've gone off to conferences armed with all the instructions from my committees, and sometimes your point of view changes when you hear the debate. So I would be of the opinion that we'd leave it to your practical common sense. As somebody said, you're level-headed, and I agree with that. So, yeah, it's nice to get an indication, but leave it up to the mayor to make his decisions.
Everyone support that, or I'll keep going through them?
Oh, we still can go through them.
Use of MEC, there's 3 left. I'll go through the, sorry, Councillor Wilson.
Just going back to number 7, the water bottling, it's almost a two-part thing because it's and or use water for water bottling or bulk export. And probably most Kiwis would agree that we have to bottle water for our own use, but it says companies coming in and bulk exporting, I think, is what aggrieves most people, the fact that they can bulk export it without paying a levy to New Zealand for that water. Which I guess will come up in the debate, but I just want to make that point. It's almost a two-part debate, isn't it?
Yeah, and Councillor McMillan will be at the AGM with me, I presume, as well, and the Chief Executive, so we can have a wee natter as it's happening. Yeah. Use of macrons by local authorities? Agree? Yeah, support. Rates rebate for low-income property owners? Agree, because the level hasn't been adjusted for quite some years. I think that's what they're adjusting. Councillor Wilson.
I'd like to see a complete revamp of the way local government is funded. Government has an inquiry, they get the report back and they completely ignore it. They just, government is national, well, you know, central government, that's right, is totally ignorant as far as funding local government. I mean, overseas in Europe, taxes provide a big part of local government funding. In New Zealand, we rely almost solely on property taxes, some user charges. So I think this is a backdoor way of doing it. It should be looking at the whole way local government is funded rather than taxation giving rebates to some people. How do you decide who's a low income earner and who needs rates rebate? Because some of those low income earners might have huge assets, and at the moment they're paying big property rates even though they've got low incomes. So it's very difficult for this sort of policy to work fairly, I think.
And support, in principle, we support. Local government CO2 emissions. Thank you. Thanks for the direction there. AGM, COVID-19. Essential dairy workers, and the letter went off to Ian Lees-Galloway through the Merrill Forum to support those workers that haven't heard back. Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to ask about Sam Broughton. Are we going to have him, he would like to come and speak to council members about the admissions. Is it worthwhile doing that, or that's on your Canterbury Merrill Forum number 3?
That was, yeah, the Canterbury plan, and we've got a date set for that.
Okay.
30th July.
Yeah, 30th of July. He's going to come and talk to us about the Canterbury plan, which the Merrill Forum has put together.
Okay.
Yep. Number 5, Remuneration Authority, and you will have all seen that I took a pay cut. I'm glad it was determined by Wellington and not having to do it myself, so that's fine, and I hold no grudge against them for doing it. That is okay. But there's about $6,000 there which is reduced, which can go to a fund. It doesn't have to drop into the big abyss of council. It can go into a Merrill fund, and then if you do that, then it needs to be determined how it can be dished out. So I'd probably ask, if we want to do that with it, ask the Chief Executive to give us a report on how it can be distributed in a Merrill fund, and not just necessarily that bit, because there might be other bits that go into it over time as well. So we'll do it once and for all. Is it? Yep. Councillor Mackay.
I'll move accordingly.
That we ask
Chief
for a report.
Executive bring us a report.
Yep. Councillor Floon.
On proposed or suggested
Policy around
policy for Merrill Fund.
distributing the Merrill fund. Yep.
No.
It's another. Councillor Floon.
I would second that. Do we actually currently have a Merrill fund? I mean, you hear about a lot of other TAs that do have Merrill funds. Do we have an official one, or is this going to be the initial seed capital do it?
No, we through you, Mr Mayor, we do have an official Merrill Relief Fund. I'll have to refresh myself on the policy and rules around how that is applied, but they're generally for cases of tragedy or significant hardship, and I can, other councils have used those for families who's perhaps had a fire and weren't insured, and they've lost absolutely everything. It's often the sort of criteria around it, but we'll refresh ourselves on the policy and bring it forward for review. But there is a small fund already established.
If you want to contribute to it, councillors, you're more than welcome. Councillor McMillan.
I was going to suggest that it goes towards a food bank that's already set up, and we'll probably have an indication in the next social recovery advisory group on how the community's doing and what the need is for food banks. So just something to keep up your sleeve.
Okay, so if the policy's formed, then that could be an application to it, and we could distribute that way. Yep, that's good. Thank you. And anything other than the Merrill report? I have
Just one question.
Councillor Brown.
We all must have missed something yesterday. There was a speed limit review. You went by yourself. On the bottom, 24th of June.
Yeah. It was the reserve day, and I never picked it up.
So I took it. You had a good day.
This was printed last week in anticipation.
That's what I meant.
Because of the chairmanship of that group, we got it all done in one day rather than 2. So, great bringing up. We will scratch that off. Councillor McMillan.
Yes. Thank you. And I just want to let you know that on the 23rd of June, I didn't make it up to Wellington. I got as far as the airport and sat there for 4 hours while they decided whether we could fly or not due to the fog. So never made it to the World Refugee Day celebrations.
It was a shame because Ian Lees-Galloway was hosting that, and you had a few things to talk to him about if you had the opportunity. So that's okay. We can't do anything about the weather. Just update one thing at the way station at Rakaia, the one NZTA proposing to do. It went through Selwyn District Council yesterday. Through the for the notice of requirement went through their meeting, and I've just taken that clip from their meeting, and if Ruben's out the back and can hear me, he's going to play it for what they discussed at their meeting about that way station. So it takes about 4 to 5 minutes, I think. So for Ruben, if we could put that up and listen to Selwyn Council in action, and so they weren't far different than us, but we'll come out with an outcome. Ruben, we need to move forward a bit.
Decision, and I'll just note at the outset, the Mayor of Ashburton, while understanding the process that we have gone through, does not feel that NZTA has done a particularly good job at consulting affected parties in this discussion, and wanted me to say that today. So not that that is about the process that we have had to run ourselves, but it's a comment in relation to our external stakeholder relationships with those who we interact with in NZTA as a close partner and funder of many of the works that we do. And as I noted earlier, we're heavily involved in Castle Hill and the outcomes there, but don't appear to have been as involved in this circumstance. And that affects not only ourselves but Ashburton as well. Do I have a mover and seconder for this report? Alexander or Bland? Alexander, sorry. Councillor Bland, anything you'd like to add? No, Councillor Lennon.
Yeah, just I'll reinforce your comment, Mayor, that whilst statutorily they've gone through the correct process, that perhaps their consultation with the community would be advantageous. And it's lots of lines with the conversation we had at the start of the meeting, stakeholders through. It's just perhaps a little less than engagement early and thoroughly into their process than just sticking to rules. So just make that comment before we vote. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Yeah, I want to reiterate the concerns that you've raised and the Mayor of Ashburton have raised. The report here seems to be very heavy on the fact it's a great place to catch trucks from diverting around it, but it's very light on actually the safety issues, the valid safety issues that NZTA, the Trucking Association, I think anyone who's driven across the Rakaia Bridge recently or any time would say that's not a great place to put that. And you know, we task NZTA with building safer roads for us to travel on, safer work streams. And it seems like in this instance, expediency's got in front of safety. And you know, I have a lot of sympathy for our Ashburton colleagues. They were across the border backing from them, and we're here sitting here sort of recruiting it. But I don't think it really cuts the mustard, really. And you know, I think has to be said that we really want to see some significant safety improvements in this design or changes to that road to make that safe, because it's a very, very high traffic flow area with multiple vehicles and exiting and entering at speed, and it remains to be seen how they can make that a safely operating activity without significant roadworks or a significant reduction in speed limits. So I certainly want to register my concern, and I think I'd like to see our council register our concern that we would like to see significant work done and assurance done that safety will become a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 priority in this proposal, where at the moment it very much appears that it's all about capturing trucks and trying to avoid diversions.
Thank you. Tim Harris, I wonder whether you just want to touch on, because these concerns have been raised over a number of weeks by both ourselves and our community as well as those in Ashburton, and maybe you just talk us through the steps that have been taken to so far address some of those concerns. And this final document is quite different than what was initially proposed with some changes. Ben, I'm just going to...
through the process, I've been in touch with ADC Mayor, and just linked to those steps. At the beginning, there was issues raised, and that's where the safety audit was completed, and that's why you had that amended plan circulated today. That's what it's been based on. What we have in front of us is I guess the agency responsible for state highway saying they've done the work, it's safe. Our asset transport officers agree whether it's the right location as they are the designating authority. They own the land. We can't actually look at alternative site. We look at the site that they've chosen. On the basis of evidence provided, we have no reason to question the safety aspects of it, and we'll be relaying that back. I guess all we can relate back to that community is the process and steps we've taken. This is just a recommendation from council as well. We don't actually make the decision. So the next step from here will be, this is the recommendation based on the process we've taken, and it'll go up to the NZTA to issue their final decision within 30 working days.
Say aye. Against? It carries. Douglas, do you want to come back to your paper now? Sorry, you're back. Welcome back.
Thanks, Ruben. And so that's the outcome of the work we've been doing over the last wee while. I think you probably blame the RMA, perhaps. Common sense is just missing in this one, and they've all tried to do what we needed to do, but it still just carries on. They've had to tick it off to allow them the notice of requirement. The only one who can stop this now is NZTA, says we don't want to put it there. But if they do that, I don't know. It's up to them. But we've done all we can. I suppose there's more steps once they start building it, but let's see what happens when we get that far. Councillor Falloon.
Yeah, have we spoken to the 3 local body politicians who are involved in this, and is it possible to go through a political angle on this?
Yes, I've spoken to Joe Luxton and Andrew Falloon about it, and yeah, there's they've voiced their concerns, but NZT aren't listening. It seems to be they just don't listen. They've made their mind up, they're going to put it there, and it sounds like they're going to put it there. So, but as the Mayor Broughton said, the proposal now is different to what it was before on the layout of the design. They have tweaked it to make it safe on paper, but whether it is or not, time will tell, I suppose. Yeah, you get a practical report at some stage once it's built. So there's my Mayor's report. If there's no questions, yeah, I'll move that we receive the Mayor's report. For second it.
Second.
Councillor Miller, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried, thank you. So we are right on time. So we've got Sire Clayton Wade, who's with us now, and welcome, Sire. And Janice is supporting him. Sire's a two-year, and he's also a two-year graduate and also a global ambassador. And I'll let So, tell us what the two-year program is. Well, I'll give you a little bit and then he can fill us in on the rest. Each mayor of New Zealand has a two-year graduate, I suppose you call it, and the mayor's a mentor for that person. And yeah, I'll let you tell us all about it because you've been out there and doing it. So the floor is yours.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Josiah toku ingoa, ko Tapuwaio e nuku toku maunga, ko Waiotua toku awa, ko Takitimu toku waka, ko Naitaku toku iwi, ko Ngāti Kuri toku hapu, ko Takahanga me Kereru me Mangamanu toku marae, no Hakateri ahau. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, my name's Josiah Clayton-Wade, and this year I've been honoured to work closely alongside Neil Brown, Carol McAtamney, Janice Mackay and Bevan Rickaby. I was chosen at the start of the year by Elise Lysart, the previous Tuia Rangatahi, to work on the Tuia Kaupapa for 2020. I have the privilege of travelling the country to attend 5 wanangas with 70 other chosen rangatahis from various district councils to learn not only about our Māori heritage but to also learn more te reo and hopefully become fluent. And whilst learning the history of Māoritanga and how it's shaped our country to today. It's been an eye-opening experience so far to learn about my background as I never embraced it or engaged with it previously, and to be able to share this journey with my tuia whānau and as well as Neil and Carol has been really inspiring. To continue, earlier this year, Janice reached out to me to become a part of the Welcoming Communities team as one of the global ambassadors. Although COVID-19 has unfortunately curtailed on plans we had this year for the program, it's been amazing to be a part of a team that promotes cultural diversity by attending and hosting community events, taking part in training workshops that help us to further engage and gain practical experience in international relations. So far this year, I've attended and assisted with my first citizenship ceremony, helped along with the Holi Festival of Colours, and celebrated the Māori New Year for Matariki at the Hakateri Marae. And I'd like to personally thank Neil, Carol and Elise for giving me the opportunity to be on the Tuia Kaupapa for 2020, as well as Janice and Bevan for selecting me to be one of the global ambassadors. Thank you.
Thanks, so it's really good. And you might like to tell us what you're going to move to Wellington shortly, and then and your aspirations for study, what you plan on doing.
So I'm moving to Wellington in 2 weeks. I am going out to study at Victoria University a degree in political science and te reo Māori. My goal in the future is to be able to help with dispute resolutions on the Waitangi Tribunal. So yeah, this is just me taking that one step further, I guess.
So it's pretty exciting future you're going to have ahead of you, and one day you might take the political lead and come around a table like this, or the bigger one in Wellington even, perhaps.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
And I think I've connected you with a couple of MPs who reside here but go up there, so when you're Wellington they've extended out an invitation for you to join them and see how it works up there.
Yeah, and I was just telling Bevan and Janice today that I have just been invited to the Governor General's house up in Wellington for a special dinner with my partner who works in public policy up in Wellington. He was invited along because he was on the COVID National Crisis Team, so she's hosting them for dinner and I've luckily been invited as his guest.
I think you could probably send us a photo.
Yeah, hopefully.
It sounds really exciting. It'll be really good. I haven't even got there, so you're one step ahead of me. Well done. Councillors, any questions? either on Tuia or the global ambassadors? Councillor McMillan.
So I was just going to ask a question. So your study in Wellington, has that changed since your Tuia program?
No, I think if anything, it's encouraged me and helped me more to get a bit more of an understanding about Māori tanga and the history. I never really knew a lot about Māori tanga and Te Reo Māori, the language as well. So I think if anything, it's just pushed me further to want to do it. So.
When I was at Wellington, setting up the program or getting an introduction to the program, there was other older Tuias there who'd run the program, and they came and spoke to us, and they all respect it's a very highly run program, highly regarded program, and they all do well when they come out of it. So, so I would expect nothing less than what they've done as well. So, well done, Councillor Brum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Global Ambassador, what are you doing? What do I have to see? What is the function?
Good question. We're mainly here to, and the best way that I can put it is, we're really just here to promote the cultural diversity in the area and to, I don't know, Janice, do you have anything that you want to say?
Yeah, their main role, the Global Ambassadors, is to promote cultural diversity, as Josiah mentioned, and they do that through activities and events and speaking to the media. You've had a couple of times on Hoops on Air talking about the welcoming activities that they've been doing. And part of it is professional development as well. So we're just running them through some workshops in the next few months. So, yeah.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. So in your role, do you get to go back periodically and speak to the leaders or the senior school in our secondary schools here during your time in the program?
A part of Tuia or?
Well, yes, Tuia particularly, yes, just as an aspirational leader for the next crew coming through.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it'd be quite cool to do that. I didn't gather much information from when Elise approached me. I believe that Neil and Carol had talked to Elise and they had 3 people that they had selected for Tuia. I don't know how the process goes, but I think it'd be quite cool, and that's something that I would like to do, is to be able to go into primary schools, into high schools and talk about it, because I feel like a lot of younger Māori kids, they don't know enough about their background, and they're not encouraged to do it. I went to Ashburton College and it was, never a compulsory subject, and I don't think it was taken seriously enough for Māori kids to be able to gain further interest in it. So I think that would be a really cool thing to do in the future.
Great, thanks.
We can discuss that even as part of it, what we do, and perhaps get you into one of the schools, whatever, to deliver something or whatever. We can talk about it. Great. Yeah, councillors, any further questions? If not, thanks very much for coming along. So it's really good for an update.
Thank you for having me, everyone. Sorry, I was a little bit nervous because I've never done this before.
You're really good now. We've got long-serving staffs coming up, but you're more than welcome to stay and have a cup of tea with us shortly. We're just going to have some long-serving staff, and then hopefully take 10 minutes if they are about.
They're on their way.
On their way. Okay. So we might just take.
Just taking
hang, yeah, just hang around if you want to, so and have a cup of tea and have a chat with the councillors afterwards. We might just adjourn for probably 5 minutes while the staff are on their way for the long service leave and new staff. So we're up to welcome new and long-serving staff, and I'll hand over to Sarah. Where'd Sarah go? Oh, there she is. Right. Thanks, Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we'd like to acknowledge a number of new staff that are here today, and they're sitting along the back seats, and if they can just stand up when your name is called, that'd be fantastic. We've got Caitlin Roddy Dixon. She's part of our property team as our property administration officer. Thank you. Zane Adams, who's also our property officer. We've got Amber Tyson, who's our senior information officer in Gordon's team. And we've also got Romalyn Ungub, who is our application specialist in Gordon's team also. So those are the new faces that some joined us during lockdown, which was an interesting experience to start council life via Zoom. So, and since then we've had some people start in the flesh to start with. So yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, hope you've enjoyed your first few weeks. We've got some special long-standing staff members that we'd also like to acknowledge at this point, and I'll start with Reese Roberts, and I'll ask him to come forward, please. Reese initially was a member of our lifeguard team at EANC, and then he transferred over into our roading team on a fixed-term position, and has stayed there ever since. So his duties have changed dramatically, but yeah, 5 years service to council. So thank you very much, Reese. Another person that we'd like to acknowledge today is Brian Firth, and he is our roading manager. Brian came to council 10 years ago, and previously was working for Opus prior to coming to council. So yeah, roading is a major focus clearly in our world at council, and he plays a big part in that. Thank you. And last but absolutely not least, I'd like to ask Jill Watson to come forward. Jill Watson has achieved a remarkable feat in terms of 45 years service at Ashburton District Council. Or the amalgamation. So, unfortunately, I was here in 2015 as well, so I found my speech from then. And the last line of it was with comments that Jill often says about her role. I suspect that her 40-year milestone is unlikely to be her last. So yeah, I predicted that well as well. So just by way of background, Jill was employed by council in 1975 as the children's librarian, and then she became the head librarian for the Borough Council and then the district librarian at Amalgamation. She's got a range of qualifications under her belt, and also has managed library services and the relocation of the library. She's planning for the new library building, which is a big project that she's sinking her teeth into, and she has dealt with earthquake repairs and multiple leaking roofs. So she has a small team, but it's a tight ship, and it functions really well. Recently, post-COVID, they've now got a mobile function in terms of books on wheels as well, which is a new initiative. Likewise is the electronic self-checking in and out. So things keep changing. Your clientele keeps changing. Your internet kiosks have brought in more customers as well, and yeah, a strong advocate for the library and all library services. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the next 2 years in particular.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for that, introducing the new staff. So then welcome to them, the long-serving staff. Thank you for all you've done. and Jill, especially rewarding to get 45 years. And I bet you can't count the number of litres of water you've collected in that building that you shouldn't have had to collect, but I'd imagine it's quite a few. Well, in 2 years or less, probably about 2 years, that will be remedied. So, yeah, you can throw those buckets out forever after that. It's well done to you all. We'll adjourn now for a cup of tea, and more than welcome to stay and have a chat to the councillors and talk to them about whatever you'd like to talk to them about, and vice versa. So, and then we're going to, this takes us to the end of the open part of the meeting. So, should I move into committee now or do it when we get back? Do it back. So that takes us to the end of the open part of the meeting. Thank you.